Okay, so one of the students, as I said, had a question about advanced image cropping, right? We talked about this a little bit. Definitely in Figma, we had that a lot. I'm just going to add a new section here so we can just kind of show you the two different ways we add images in Elementor. If I go plus, Flexbox, and we'll just do 50 and 50. We're going to have two images, right? So sometimes we want an image as a background. Now, if I go into this container to set the background to this, now I could have also set the background to here, but let's just go ahead and set it to this section for a sec. Okay? Then what I want to do is I want to go to Style at the top, and let me move this out of the way. We're going to go to Background Type, and we're actually going to change. There's a few different ones. There's Slideshow, which is kind of cool. It's an image with slides. There's Video, Gradient. But we're going to go to Classic, and we're going to go ahead and click on Image, and we're going to pick an image. So whatever image it is, select it. So you can see before I even click anything else, it's giving me some information. So it says that this image is 1700 by 2500 pixels. That's the resolution. It's a massive image for the web. Really, really, really large. So normally we don't want to display images larger than like 1500 pixels wide, because otherwise it's just going to slow people down when they're downloading or looking at it, right? It also gives me the size in file size images. 471 kilobytes is not too terrible. It's half of 1 megabyte. So a song, for example, is usually like 3 or 4 megabytes, just to put it in perspective. So an image itself should probably be closer to that 100K or less is really what we're targeting. So if I go ahead, a few things I want to do. First of all, I should be setting an alt text to things. So I should come in here and say, you know, image of village or something in snow. And go ahead and select it. So it's going to go ahead and add that image to the background. Now, what's happened right now is we can't see the rest of the image. It's there. I'm actually only seeing the top left little part because that image is that large. So if I change the image resolution, that's the first thing I normally do is, if I'm using a background image, is change my image resolution, bring it way down. So bring it down to like that 1500, as I said, is a good kind of size to start with. But even then, it's still too big. Large. Still too big. Thumbnail? There it is. You can see that's where the image is, right? So we're going to large for a sec, because that's probably a good sane size. The next thing I want to do is I want to say, okay, well, how do you want to display it in this box? Box is not very tall. Let's make this whole section a little taller for a sec. So I'm going to go into Edit Container, and I'm going to go to Min Height. I'm just going to dial that way up. There we go. And then I still can't see that image, eh? It's still too big. It's huge. Oh, you can start seeing it a little bit right there. That's good. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so say I have a nice big image like this. Let's go ahead and we'll close our navigator on the side so we can there we go, see even more of it. So I'm going to go back into editing this. Now this image, again, this is a background image, so we're in Style, looking at this, changing the size here. Now we can start playing around with these. Now the weird part is position. Position is where in the frame are we positioning it? So we can go center, center, for example. And that's literally moving the crop around. We're moving that background image around inside of its crop. So for example, if I wanted to see the bottom right of the image, I would go bottom right. And now I can see the information in the bottom right of the image, right? But let's say, for example, I just set it to center, center. There we go. I think it defaults to top left. Yeah?
What if we just don't want the like sky in the picture? If we just need the mountains and the houses.
Yeah, you could
change the background.
Yeah, so you could change your positioning here. You can edit your background, or you can go to Custom, and you can actually change your X and Y positions manually. Now you can see though, if I do that, look at that. See, I get a repeat. So you got to be careful with how you're doing it. That's the only issue. But I can go a Y position and bring that exactly where I want it, right? So usually I don't play with the custom. I normally keep it like one of the presets. It's a little easier to work with. Okay, so the other options here, though, I could do, though, is under Attachment, that's Scroller Fixed. This is a little bit more advanced. If I go scroll, for example, when I scroll, not scroll, actually, fixed. When I scroll past it, you can see the image stays centered in the container, which in this case looks really strange, but I'll show you how to fix that. But I'm going to go default again. That's just normal image. Repeat is how you want it to repeat. So sometimes you want it to repeat. In this case, we don't. But this display size unlocks probably the best options for using a background image. And if I go under default, you can see I got a couple. I have cover, which is my favorite. That's going to resize the image. So it'll never repeat. It'll resize the image so you see the most amount of that image. based on the size of the box that's containing it. So if I were to make this wider, for example, no, it's not going to make it wider. Let's make it wider by making it not as tall. So I'm going to go back in here for a sec. I'm going to crush the min height down. So you can see it's changing its crop, but never repeating the image, which is kind of cool, right? So if I go back into here for a second, the other option is called contain. Contain will repeat it. It will make sure that the entirety of the image is always available. Now, usually you don't want to repeat, so I could go up to repeat and go no. And then now that image, the entirety of that image is always available. I would argue, in this case, you shouldn't be using a background image. Because a background image is only useful if you want to put text on top or you want that auto crop to happen. That's really it, right? Because this crop is really nice and easy to use. So usually you want it to cover because you also don't know what the screen dimensions are. You don't know, like, is it going to be a more narrow screen? Like, it needs to make a choice, right? Like, the browser can figure out how wide it needs to be. I have no idea what I just did. It's being very slow. Yeah, I just resized the container. But if I were to resize the page instead, which I thought I was doing, bring it over here. There it goes. You can see it's going to automatically choose what size the image needs to be at, right? So it's going to do some stuff automatically. So again, that's background images. The cool part about background images, as I said, is you can put text over top. I could also come in here and go to background overlay, which we've played with a little bit, I think in the past, right? Did we ever get to that? Yeah. Background overlay is neat because I can go to background type on the overlay, and I can set a color. And I'm literally putting an overlay on top of that image of a color, right? And I can also even go to CSS filters and actually change the saturation, make it a black and white image. Just like that. Look at that. It looks so. Oh no, this is not what this is doing. I'm sorry. That's changing the background overlays CSS filter. That's under background. That's something else, but that's fine, right? So I can have this overlay on top. That could make it easier for me to put text on top of it. I might also want to say, like, well, actually, I just want to, have it down here, that overlay. I don't want it on the whole thing. I can use a gradient instead. So I can go to background type gradient, and then actually you have two different colors you could choose. So I can go like, the top I'm actually going to go fully transparent. And then the bottom one, that's where I actually want to see, like maybe it's white and it's washing it out a little bit, right? Or maybe it's actually a radial gradient where it's going to be faded on the outside and not in the middle. Whatever. Like it's totally up to you, kind of how you do that on top of your image, right? So background overlay is, again, it's a super cool option just to go really quickly add, some sort of overlay on top of this so you can put text on top. You can also, this is really cool, check this out. You can change what that does on hover. So if you want the user to be able to hover on top of this and something happen different, if I click on this hover, you see these all over Elementor. I could do I can even change the image. On hover, I could say I want this image instead. So when I hover on top, it's putting a background overlay of this. So I can go opacity 1, and it actually just changes the image completely to that image, right? I don't know why you'd do that, but maybe you want it to do. Or if you want it just to be a color instead and not an image. So you can change the color of it, right? Change the opacity down. So whatever, when you hover, it changes, right? So those are all, again, these are all cool options you can do. I'm just going to reset it all. There we go. So it doesn't do that hover. Those are background images. The other way we use images in Elementor, and this is going to answer your question about cropping, a different way we crop, is if we go up to the waffle for a second, go ahead and grab our image and drag that in. This is just a normal image we've popped in for a sec. This image is a little different. This image doesn't automatically crop. So if I go ahead and pick on any of these, here, the cat, and drop it in, you can see nothing's changed. It's not cropped at all. I can change its size, and I should. I should pick a size that works for this image. So I kind of making sure it's not pixelated, but it's no larger than that, right? So if I came down too far, you can see it would, change in size too much. I can change the size of it. I can go to Style, and I can change its width, right? So you can kind of change that kind of stuff. You can add a border radius to it. This is what we've done in the past. Make it a circle, that kind of stuff. But if I were to instead say, okay, like let's pick an image that we want to crop instead, that would make more sense. Like, so for example, pardon? the moon and cloud, for sure. So let's pick that one. And we know, okay, well, we actually want this, like, there's too much down here. We don't want to see that. So instead of using a background image, I want it as a normal image inside. What I have to do instead is I have to edit that image using WordPress. So what I do instead is, it's not actually in Elementor. It's going to be in WordPress. I go up here, I click on the image. I'll kind of show you the limitation in this. I can go ahead and go edit image right here. See that? So if I go to edit image, it opens up the WordPress image editor. And I can do all kinds of stuff. I can scale it, I can rotate it, but I can also crop it. So if I click crop, I can say, okay, I actually want this image to be cropped way down. We've done this with your logos before, right? Maybe I want something more like this or something. I don't know, whatever. That looks cool. So I want it like this. So what I do is I go ahead and click apply crop. Go ahead and click save edits. And then go ahead and click select. So you'll notice one thing, check this out. Top left, it updated it. That's the right crop. On the right, it didn't. What's happened is my browser doesn't realize that the image has changed. It's actually using what's known as a cached version of the image. So it's like a saved version locally, so I don't have to re-download it. So I need to tell my browser, no, just re-download it. So what I need to do is, before we do anything else, click update. And then sometimes a normal refresh will work. It's just refreshing the page. In that case, it did, yeah. And other times, you actually have to wipe your cache. And I've talked to a few guys of you that have had to do something like that. So now I get the new cropped image in here. All right, and that's basically images in Elementor, how it works.